All right, so welcome everyone to today's webinar about technologies, 3 key technologies to drive peak performance in your contact center. And I'm Mike Aoki, will be the host for today's webinar. And I want to welcome all of you to today's session as well. And going forward, what we'll do is just take a quick look in terms of who are the speakers and the experts for today's session. So we have Kay Phelps from 8x8, and Kay's out there in Denver, Colorado. So welcome, Kay.
Hello.
All right, hi there. And we also have Martin Tracey as well, and he's in sunny San Diego, California. And I'm based out of Toronto as well. I'm Mike Aoki, the picture to your right that's on there. And I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar. And a few sort of things just to get started for the webinar itself. It is going to be very interactive. So there's a few questions that we have to go and ask our expert panel, but also you get to ask questions as well. And so for those of you that are watching this webinar, you can actually click on either the Q&A, the question and answer window, or the live chat window, either one of those things, and actually type in questions for us, or comments as well. And what we'll do is actually take a look at those and actually ask these experts those questions later on during the session itself in about the last 15 to 20 minutes or so of this. Now, to start off with as well, I just want to mention too that it really is focused in terms of looking at some of the really emerging contact center technologies. There's a lot of change going on right now in the industry, and certainly artificial intelligence or AI, speech analytics, are very big issues right now in terms of looking at this, as well as agent enablement tools as well to help make the agents' jobs easier. As the customers get more demanding, of course, you want to have better tools for them as well. So 3 key things to talk about during today's session. And we'll actually start off by asking a question in terms of looking at artificial intelligence. So looking at chatbots and other kinds of AI as well. And I want to ask the question, Kay, to yourself. It's how will AI chatbots affect a contact center's workload?
This is a really interesting question. I think AI intelligence, AI technologies such as chatbots, virtual agents, I think when they're implemented selectively, you don't want to do it across the board, but we'll talk about that. And then you'll need to nurture them. These technologies can go a long way in helping companies reduce the volumes of calls that go to a live agent. Late last year, I supported a contact center conference where I led a series of panel discussions on this very topic. And technology leaders who had implemented chatbots were part of the panel, as well as lots of attendees who had not done so yet, but were looking to see how those technologies could perhaps work for their business. So I'd just like to recap a few of the things from that conference, because we've got collective wisdom from that group here. One court, business analyst from court, he strongly advised starting simply, and then stay in a loop of feedback so that you have to nurture the application, was his point. He went on to say that if you try to do something too complex out of the gate, you could be setting yourself up for failure. You could frustrate your customers by not giving them the help or support that they need. And another really good point he made, he strongly suggested being upfront about the fact that you are a chatbot. So rather than, and we've probably all experienced this, where you're doing a web chat and you think it's a live agent and then something happens where it's a sharp right turn that just doesn't align and you think this is not a person. You don't want your customers to have that experience. If they were, at least they know up front that they're being helped by a bot. He also, the court analyst, also strongly made a point of saying that it's not once and done, that it has to be nurtured, and that work is needed to fine-tune those applications. And he's, as one attendee said, how much you put into it is how much you'll get out of it. Chatbot's only as good as the data it has. Second point, you want to be sure and measure the deflection rate if you decide to implement chatbots. One company at this discussion said that they had put a chatbot into Facebook Messenger, and they initially celebrated a fantastic result. More than half of calls, or chats rather, that had previously gone to agents were now being deflected. And so after that initial celebration, what they realized is that what was left was the harder stuff. So talk time of chats that went to agents went up, or the chat time rather. And not only that, but customer sat of those chats that were supported by an agent actually went down. So you just want to make sure to look at your metrics carefully, assess correlation and causation. And then a final point that I'd like to make about chatbots is that to some extent, the type of business that you're in may dictate how successful you will be. So for example, one of the panelists was a global director of customer operations at the world's largest ticket seller. And what she said is that when weather disrupts major events, for example, you have rain, is the ball game going to be rained out or not? And chatbots proved to be perfect for those yes-no type of answers. She said they just want to get their answers and get them quickly. On the other hand, Mike, a representative from Baxter Medical pointed out that in his industry, people are asking and want immediate answers for complex medical devices and pharmaceuticals, and handling that type of request via chatbot was going to be close to impossible. And so not only chatbots, but virtual agents. So as you look at these technologies, know that you'll need to give them the right kind of care and feeding, and that they, when done so for the right type of industry, can be very effective in deflecting calls or chats to live agents.
Well, that sounds great, Kay. That's really great information in terms of how those chatbots are definitely making big changes, in the contact center industry. And I would like to do is ask Marty a question, actually, Marty Tracey from LANtelligence. Marty, how else can AI help the contact center?
When it comes to AI from an organizational perspective, there's many areas where chatbots are really leveraging AI is allowing contact centers to utilize all that historical and real-time data that they've had for years, that they really have had to only operate from a historical perspective. So all of this data can be used to help retain customers that are at risk, to better improve existing customer engagements, and really to help grab the interest of kind of new customers and help, bring them into all the things your company can do from a CX perspective. By using the historical data, the contact center can route calls to the most appropriate agent. It can arm agents with information about the customer's past experiences and preferences, or even alert them to any issues the customers may be having. So AI really is a leveraging point for organizations to take all the historical and real-time data that they have. For me, what it really does in most contact centers is it gives you the golden ticket, which is the ability to be proactive with both prospects and customers. So, that's where we're seeing the big effects of AI. And the hidden piece behind all of that is the ability for machines to process that information so much faster than supervisors and leaders in the contact center could from reporting and other aspects. Things that would take weeks and days now become instantly actionable information.
Well, that sounds great, Marty. That's really huge impacts, that AI is having. And just as a follow-up question as well, what are your clients' biggest technical hurdles when trying to implement AI in the contact center?
The biggest technical challenges when trying to utilize AI within the contact center is really the integration of all the disparate data sources. Bringing together all the required data for solutions to make the right routing and workflow decisions takes very detailed plans and really is a continual maintenance piece. It's not a matter of putting in a chat bot with some software generically and hoping it's just going to operate out of the box. You really have to design and feed all of that data from the sources that you have. One of the key components, which is usually the biggest hiccup I see at the start, is a lot of these discussions start on the IT side. And what we're really actually trying to do is drive contact center business decisions. So involvement from the contact center teams on the business requirements and then the desired results is crucial to the solution being successful. These solutions really go in as generic pieces of software that need to be configured and designed for your environments. So the results are only going to be as good as the data and the design that goes in. So that's where we see a very large kind of technical lag. When it comes to fully utilizing the AI, we're talking about integrations to your CRM, to internal customer databases, even to third-party databases that are providing information in many contact center environments that are key to routing and finding the right agents and the right people within the organization to speak to. Once you're in an operational from that perspective, the other big challenge we see, and you can't lose focus on, is that every time there's an upgrade to any of the databases or this software in itself, the AI applications, you really need to have a good pre-implementation or a good pre-upgrade plan that lays it out. And really, we recommend you do it in a test environment, because you don't want to find out about changes in a data set in a live environment, because all the data is being mapped into certain categories. And if any of the format of that data changes, it changes your results. So, being able to test outside of production is key. And I think, the last piece of that, if you think about it, is having a trusted partner with these solutions that really engages and works with the contact center folks, so that they can translate all of the business needs and requirements and the end result of expected execution into actionable technical, work. So those are the real keys that we see. And, the biggest keys really aren't technical. They're communication and involvement from the contact center side.
Okay, great, Martin. Those are great points as well about communication and working with the contact center side as well. And now another common topic coming up, a big issue right now in contact centers, is the whole thing wrapped around speech analytics and about how those can be used as well. And so, Kay, I've got a question for you in terms of looking at speech analytics, and that's, how can speech analytics help companies search for new opportunities by flagging key phrases?
I like that question, Mike, because typically when we've talked about speech analytics in the past, we've talked about ferreting out problem areas, which of course speech analytics can do very well. I think one of the things when implementing speech analytics and seeing what it can do for your business, I go back to a point that Marty had made, and that is, you need to look at the broader business and involve those, and look for opportunities to make an impact. Let's look at a couple of examples of opportunities that you can unearth using speech analytics. And let me tell you how you would probably approach it too. Initially, perhaps you cast a big net. You might say, let's say you're looking for new product opportunities in your business. You might want to start with looking for phrases like, do you sell? Or where could I find? And then as you click through the transcriptions from that initial higher level query, let's say, for example, maybe you are a sporting goods company. And you start out by saying, do you sell? And maybe you see looking at several of these transcriptions, and you're seeing inquiries about pickleball. And you're like, what the heck is pickleball? We don't sell that stuff. Well, if you narrow your search now and say, do you sell pickleball? And maybe you get a whole host, because this is a sport that's rapidly gaining popularity across the country and across the world, really. And maybe you're going to see a gazillion. Do you sell pickleball paddles? Do you sell pickleball nets? And Mike, it's kind of a bad pun, but it comes to mind, so I'm going to use it. So, if you're not offering pickleball, then maybe you're missing the ball. So these are the type of business opportunities that you may be able to find using speech analytics. Also, you can look for opportunities to improve customer satisfaction. You might look for, I wish, or if only, those type things. Also, third thing, look at it maybe to see if you're priced correctly. So search for too expensive or cost too much, which are likely indicators, if you're seeing a lot of them, that maybe your price tag is too high. On the other side of the coin, maybe you also search for "that's cheap" or "what a great deal." And if you're seeing lots of those, maybe you're leaving money on the table, which of course you don't want to do. So, we could talk all day about this, the business opportunities presented by speech analytics. But let me turn it back to Marty, because I'm sure he has good points to add here as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kay. Appreciate that. And some great advice for all the listeners as well. And actually, Marty, I'll ask you the next question. And this is really geared towards, how can speech analytics automate contact center quality assurance?
Well, when it comes to quality assurance, we're talking about an area of the contact center that really has required a lot of manual intervention, a lot of human intervention in, creating scorecards, creating interaction, training, improvement, all these areas. And this is an area that speech analytics is really interesting. And it's an area where, AI can use all of its calculation power to change the dynamic within the quality assurance groups. So, one of the areas that we're seeing that's super interesting is software that's being used from a speech analytics standpoint to allow supervisors to configure modules or scorecard modules based on keywords, phrases, natural language, and even tonal signals of customer and agent voice. In real time, the solutions convert all of the recordings into a high quality transcripts, which are analyzed using the modules that you create based on your needs and your environment. This information is instantly actionable intelligence that's available for the agents and the managers and supervisors to use. So what this really is allowing you to do is score large samples of agent calls with very limited human interaction and very limited time required by supervisors, which frees up the management supervisory role to engage with the agents for training, direct customer support, escalations, and other issues. One of the really neat things is these solutions are sophisticated enough that they can even redact information that is required under compliance or for other purposes. So a great example of where we've seen this software come to play is a customer of LANtelligence who's based out of Houston, Texas, has a contact center with approximately 300 agents in it. They recently had 2 of their 7 quality assurance managers leave within the same week. And the director of the contact center reached out to me because he was kind of frustrated with the endless, hiring and recruiting phases going on in the contact center and the challenges with it. He was looking for a way to maybe apply some technology to help the quality assurance team get through its tasks. So we shared the software with this director as an alternative to maybe filling those roles and kind of reassigning his quality assurance team. So what the software is doing is it's eliminating the time-consuming task of reviewing all those recorded calls and all the screen captures. So previously they had 7 managers that were able to review approximately 8 calls per agent per month. Now on average, an agent took more than 500 calls in a month. So you can see that's a very small sample and often made it really hard to drill down on issues or root causes of what was going on within the contact center. So now all of the agent calls are reviewed and scored based on the templates that are created by the supervisors, and this includes natural language processing. In addition, now this information is available to supervisors in a matter of minutes, so they can run reports showing exactly how agents are performing, who's performing best, who needs training, and there's also a large variety of metadata being pulled from the contact center itself to pair up with the recording. So, we're able to do searches based on things like disposition code. In this particular environment, there's a disposition code where the agent sends the caller back to the local dealership, which is kind of defeats the purpose of having the contact center. So that's something they want to drill in right away. And what we found is we can drill in the exact agents, the exact numbers they were doing when you were only scoring off of 8 calls, that functionality became very hard to do. So with the AI and the automation of this process, we're able to really pin areas for customer issues and customer needs, really look deeper at agent performance, so we're not just guessing anymore. And the really great effect is it's freed up a lot of time for the managers in the QA group to focus on improving the agent performance, their scripting, how they're routing calls, and other technical aspects of the customer service side. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's a great example of what we're seeing.
No, that's great, Marty. I really appreciate that. And also, Kay, I think you want to go and actually add a point as well towards the speech analytics piece.
Right. Based on what you were saying, Marty, one of the things that we have found is that using speech analytics in conjunction with quality assurance, like you were talking about, one of the things that we are seeing companies do sometimes is, of course, we talk about it typically in the landscape of looking for performance issues and then working with the agent to rectify those. One of the things we found also is that you can use to search for and bring to the top role model interactions. So let's say you have an agent who handles something hard really well, then you can send that recorded conversation or a snippet of that conversation to other agents and say, look how well Joe handled this type of inquiry, which not only helps that agent improve their performance, but will also make Joe feel really good.
Okay, great. That's a really good point as well. So there's also that motivational aspect of it. And then, Marty, as you mentioned, the sample size, the analytics are just amazing and very important as well. So I love that. Now, one of the other key issues coming up as well is this whole idea about agent enablement tools. And there are a lot of different tools and technologies that are out there, as both of you know, to be able to go and help agents do a better job. And actually, I'm just going to ask a question to yourself, Kay, about what's one of the latest or newest agent enablement tools, and how does it help both the contact center and the customer?
Okay, great. So I'm glad you asked that question because agent enablement is important from so many perspectives. When agents have the tools they need, they can more readily answer questions, deliver first contact resolution, improve customer sat, all those things that we all know are really important in a contact center. I think, and we've done a lot in this area. Most companies are already integrating with their CRM system on the agent desktop. We find a lot of companies are using the same agent desktop for multiple types of inquiries, whether that's a phone call, email, voice chat, or web chat. So what else can we do, and why is it important? I think not only is it important in delivering first contact resolution, on the agent's side, if we give them tools they need, it's going to alleviate agent frustration. And that means they're not walking out the door. Across all the contact centers I talk with, it seems like agent attrition remains a considerable issue. And when you're able to equip your agents with what they need so that they're not frustrated by not being able to help customers, then you're controlling your hiring and training costs. So many benefits of enabling your agent. One of the tools that we find really important is what we call Expert Connect. So with just a couple of mouse clicks, an agent is able to find someone, if that agent doesn't have the answer to a question or inquiry, anywhere in the enterprise. So going beyond the traditional boundaries of the contact center, finding someone who's available to click to chat with, click to call, or even perhaps bridge that expert into a call with the customer. So that type of technology, you sometimes you see it in the as an auxiliary tool, but when you embed it into the agent desktop, you give them one place to go to find answers that their customers need. And if I could take just a moment, Mike, to tell you a little bit about something that we demoed at Enterprise Connect a couple of weeks ago. So it's taking this Expert Connect functionality that I just talked with and infusing it with artificial intelligence. So let me paint this scenario. Let's have the one we just talked about where an agent doesn't have an answer and is looking for an expert in the enterprise to provide that answer to help with that. But what if none of those go-to experts is available? What we're doing now, we're making it easy for the agent to look beyond and look in team messaging rooms, and we layer AI on top. So let's say in your company, you probably have dozens, maybe hundreds of messaging rooms for various topics like sales Q&A, documentation, widget A, widget B, widget C, the list goes on. So how would an agent know which of those messaging rooms to go into and look for an answer? We introduced and talked about a tool called Predict Room. So the agent simply types a question into that room, which then predicts based on artificial intelligence analysis of all those different meeting rooms, which room or rooms is most likely to have the needed expertise. And even if a company uses multiple messaging platforms, that's not a problem either. So let's say maybe your engineering team uses Slack, maybe the sales team uses Chatter, support organization uses Skype, so the list goes on. So no worries, because we have technology that makes these messaging platforms essentially agnostic, so that everybody across the company is able to continue to use their messaging platform of choice and yet be able to access and contribute to all these team messaging rooms. So what that means is that now agents are able to take advantage of the collective wisdom of employees across the enterprise, all working together to help find answers for customers and deliver first contact resolution and, of course, boost CSAT.
Okay, that sounds great, Kay. Those are really great agent enablement tools. Do you know of any other new agent enablement tools that are coming down that might also help in terms of customer service performance?
So I think another one, perhaps even this is, you can also use artificial intelligence to, based on, let's say a customer starts with a chat. And so you have some information and maybe they're going to an agent then. So knowing the history of that conversation, what the customer has been looking for, then you can give the agent like a virtual assistant. So let's say a customer has asked about widget A and you escalate that to a phone call because they haven't been able to get what they need from the chatbot perhaps, then also equip that agent at the same time with knowledge base links saying, okay, this customer was asking about widget A, here's a link to info. So that's another way. And again, you could embed that into the agent desktop as well, giving the agent tools to more readily, perhaps, if it's logical, respond to the customer's inquiry more quickly.
Okay, great, Kay. That sounds like amazing technology as well. I know there's a lot of different technologies, agent enablement tools that are happening right now. And Marty, a question for you is just looking in terms of agent enablement tools in the sense of how can contact center leaders ensure a smooth launch? That's one of the biggest keys, a smooth launch for new agent enablement tools. I mean, what advice would you give them to help with that rollout?
Yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record when it comes to the technical and deployment side of things, but really technology today and software rarely falls down. You know, where these things become challenging is in communication and, you know, communicating between the contact center and the IT side of things. So to really ensure a smooth deployment of solutions, what the contact center leadership really needs to do is engage as a team, which is made up of leadership and agents, and then engage with your IT team and your technology partners and share with them a designed roadmap. So what I mean by a roadmap is start with the business operations. You know, what are the particular activities or process that you want from the solution, and how are these things being done within your center today? Use that description of the business process as kind of your base platform. when we go to deploy, this is where we want to start, right? This is our base, this is where we want to be. The next key step in that roadmap is nobody wants to deploy a solution to get exactly what you have with something slightly different. And far too often, if you don't have a roadmap, people default to that. And then they tell themselves, once it's in production, we'll start to make changes. We all know that once you finish a project and get back into your daily production, that becomes very hard to do. So the next step on your business operations roadmap with your technical partner is to share what functions this tool is going to bring to these activities today that we don't have today, and what they look like from a business solution and execution standpoint. And, be able to share that business information. It's up to your IT team and your partners to translate that into a technical execution. And then the third part of this roadmap is what additional functionalities, usually this is where we get into integrations and tying together data sources and workflow. What other integrations do we want to look at in the next 6 to 9 months? Because it is key to break these things into phases. Far too often, people try to do everything at once, and it's really too much work and too much change for the agents and the folks in the center as well. So have that roadmap for your partner and your IT team of, hey, these are the things we want to see in 6 to 9 months. And then you'll also have operational experience to understand how they're going to work best and how they fit. And the last phase of that roadmap is future vision. Hey, we're buying this technology today. Technology is continually improving. We have ideas in our environment how we want to operate from a business perspective. Let's lay these out so that when we hand this roadmap off, our partner and our IT team knows, hey, this is what we want this to look like in the future. Keep your eyes open. Tell us how we can do these things. Help us make these adjustments. So creating that roadmap really will give you, the engagement with your teams for success. The other really crucial part of that that's far too often overlooked is by having the contact center team, which includes agents engaged, it builds enthusiasm for the changes. And it allows people that are directly on the front line to have input and really be engaged in that so that they are stakeholders in the success of the deployment. Because you can spend months, weeks, and hours deploying a solution behind the scenes, but if the people working on it the first day don't have buy-in and aren't excited about it, your chances of success are much smaller. So that's the advice we always give to our contact center partners.
Okay, great, Marty. Those are really great comments as well for people to be aware of as far as rolling these things out. There's always little things that always pop up with that. Now, as well, there's some questions that we have from the audience, too, so I'll have a chance to go and focus on those. For this first one, actually, I'm going to ask Marty, you about this one, and this is from Rahul, actually, in Ottawa. So, Rahul, thank you for submitting this question. Outside the legacy systems issues when implementing AI functionality within the contact center, expertise still seems to be an issue. Marty, are you aware of any certifications or programs that can help build employee skill sets in this area?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we absolutely see that all the time. Part of it is because certain segments of the industry, especially things like the quality assurance piece we talked about, are very new. Even the providers in that space, some of the bigger ones only have 50 or 100 customers. Where the training really is happening today is specific to the solutions. So when you do end up choosing a particular solution, whether it be on the AI chatbot software side, on the quality assurance, speech analytics software side, today you're still really having to lean on the provider and the partner for that training and what their training programs are. I have yet to come across something that gives you a broader, more generic training like you would get in, say, the network world or the server world.
Okay, good. Well, that's a good question as well in terms of, how that works. Kay, did you want to talk to that issue at all in terms of certifications for AI or rollouts?
There are so many great resources out there depending on what aspect of the contact center you're looking for. In addition to Marty's contributions, there is also training. For example, if you're looking to implement home agents, what are the policies, procedures, tools that you use, and so forth. I could give you a big list, Mike. I don't have it at my fingertips now, but certainly am glad to provide that as a follow-up to today's attendees.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Kay. I appreciate that. I've got a question for you in terms of looking at, again, all this technology and training. I know 8x8 does training as well on this. Kay, and this is from Stephanie, actually, a question. What are the greatest challenges they face in the contact center world around training for all of these agent enablement tools, like Expert Connect, things like that?
So I think it's important for your technology provider to equip you with not only with options for training supervisors, for training agents. I think a lot of people increasingly we are seeing prefer self-paced training so that they're able to take it at their own convenience. Perhaps if it's agents to take that training at a time when it is a period of low call volumes, perhaps you stagger that so that you're not having to impact whatsoever the day-to-day handling of calls in the contact center, as well as providing online or video training options. And training I think is important to the big picture, like what technology are you using, how do you best use it, and then even going down into the specific, here's how you do it, here's how you would handle this, here's how you handle that. And, as hard as we try on the technology side to make all of our tools completely intuitive, basically it is good to have a strong repertoire of training delivered via multiple forums, and we do provide that.
Okay, Kay, I'm glad to hear you say that as well. As a trainer myself, it's always a passion of mine. Marty, what are your thoughts when it comes to training? Because LANtelligence has a lot of rollouts as well. What do you think is most important for that kind of technology rollout for training?
From the training standpoint, we always believe that human interaction in training versus self-paced training on video can be very helpful because it helps get to the bottom of questions and really helps people understand functionality and performance. The other thing behind training is really recognizing, once the agent is using the tools, where's the continued training, how is the performance going, and setting goals and measurements prior to the deployment of the solution really helps how effective training's been and where performance is at and where supplemental training is really needed. Contact center environments are constantly in evolution. So the idea of training somebody once, really doesn't fit. So you have to keep an eye on that constant training aspect, especially with the never-ending set of new solutions that are coming into play.
Okay, good. No, that's good. That's good advice, Marty. Thank you. And Marty, a question for you. This is from David. Is how would success be measured for AI or for agent enablement implementation? So what are the benchmarks or standards for success?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the roadmap piece when you're creating the plans for deployment and implementation is having an idea of what your goals are. So you're going to have stated goals related to functionality. So let's say we're talking about quality assurance. When we're looking at the AI aspects of quality assurance, we may have goals related to, how many agent scorecards are we going to look at per user, right? What are the key goals or areas we want to determine in agent behavior? What percentage of agents are starting off with the right introduction and mentioning the right products or mentioning the right services, and set goals around the different parameters that you've laid out, threshold. And then your goal is meeting those. So as part of the implementation, you have to see the rollout and the execution of those goals. And those goals can be at an agent level, but really the key is to tie them to the business problems you're looking to solve, David. So good example would be with a retailer we work with online, very high-end retailer. Their returns were extremely high, and they were really struggling to figure out why. So they were using we put the speech analytics AI in play to get a much larger sample. And then they could look for words like return, unhappy, not satisfied, and focus in on those particular clients, understand what was happening, engage with them real time. And the goal was to decrease returns, below 20%. And so in the first 6 months, returns went from 30% down to 21%. So that's a great way to measure how successful that product has been within your environment in the implementation of it. So you definitely want to set goals that are related to the business.
Okay, no, that's great advice, Marty. I appreciate that. And Kate, for yourself, from your perspective, how do you measure AI or implementation success?
I think that is such a great question. Marty did a wonderful job answering it. So just really, I think, as Marty said, the important thing to do is to map out your goals in advance and do baseline metrics if you can do that. And so that you know whether you've been successful. When we were talking earlier, for example, about the implementing chatbots, and woohoo, we offloaded agents by sending more than half of those to chatbots. But what's the net impact of that? So I think just looking at the whole picture, clearly defining those goals up front, including as part of that discussion, what metrics are you going to use to measure success? I think the example that Marty gave was a great one. So, reduce my returns from 30% to 20%. So, and then being able to measure success, or to see where you're not hitting the target, and then try to fine tune those applications so that you are able to hit those business goals.
Okay, great, Kate. No, I appreciate that. That's good. And a question, I guess, was specifically about the tools that you mentioned, the agent enablement tools that you mentioned. Are SA and QM separate tools or integrated?
Yeah, great question. So, and 8x8, they are so closely integrated. As a matter of fact, even though we sell them individually, because not every person who has QM is going to use speech analytics initially, they may layer it on later, or conversely. And so there's such a tight integration between those tools that I had a hard time separating out, well, is that QM or is that speech analytics? But what it brings with that close integration is the ability, for example, to go in and score an agent. Maybe you're listening to a speech transcript, you've done a high-level search, you sound, we have room for improvement here. You can go directly from that tool into the quality management tool, assess that agent's performance, and even attach the appropriate snippet of the call for playback. So I think it's really important to have that close integration between those tools, either natively like we provide, or using a company like LANtelligence to help you ensure that you have that tight integration.
Okay, great. Sorry, thanks, Marty. A question for you, Marty, is in terms of, from Paul, asking about, I'm not clear how AI functions in the customer journey or agent enablement. Can you just elaborate a bit on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. That's going to be different with each journey at each customer, but I can be specific in some areas, and they can apply to lots of different customer interactions. But let's start with self-serve. AI takes all the data that you have, and for example, when Kay talks about chatbots, that artificial intelligence is allowing people to self-serve, like the Ticketmaster example. Hey, is the game rained out? Is the game off because of too much snow? So it can start with the self-serve part of the journey and take a lot of the manual tasks with all the data you have available and give customers answers. It can really be effective when it comes to QA or other areas when it comes to real-time interaction, identifying a customer issue before they get out of your control, before they get out of your center. Escalations, finding ways to interact with them, targeting on particular words or phrases or things of that nature to help you keep and retain that, to solve those problems, to help train agents to understand those problems and, use those as coaching moments. For me, very importantly, AI is used proactively. So for example, through integrations, routing callers based on the last person they talked to, particular preferences they have, the fact that they may have had a bad experience. So matching the right resources internally with the right folks that are calling in. And then last, performance measurement. So performance of your organization as a whole, performance of agents as a whole. And one of the keys, again, I always think of the fact that most people I don't think realize that more than 99% of the trades on the stock market today are automated. And now think about that within a contact center, all that information that's there that now comes to you in a real-time form or in a matter of hours, not weeks. So you can anticipate on a Monday changes in your center for Tuesday, Thursday. You don't have to figure that out 2 weeks later. So those are some areas, Paul, that I hope help kind of fill in where AI can fit in that journey.
Okay, great, Marty. Thanks. And I hopefully, Paul, it was a good answer for you as well from the audience. And Kay, I've got a question for you as well. Just one last question for you, just related to AI as well. Is there any other advice you'd give organizations as far as how they can use AI? You mentioned chatbots. Are there any other applications or ways that AI can help maybe analyze issues or whatever in the contact center?
I think we're going to see more and more applications for using artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence and machine learning in the contact center. I think for example, Google made announcements, and many companies such as us, we have integrated with those technologies to provide like a virtual agent up front, for example. Again, trying to when it is applicable to the scenario, perhaps offloading live voice interactions by virtual agent, and then sending it, of course, to an agent should the situation require that. It's kind of like taking the old IVR and infusing it with newer capabilities and smarter capabilities.
Okay, great, Kay. That's great advice as well. I like that. All right, so I'll pass this over to Marty. So one last question for you, Marty, is what can contact center leaders, VPs, directors, what can they do to justify tech investments to their CFO? Because a lot of VPs out there I know want to put in all the fancy, AI and speech enablement and everything else in there, but they need to somehow justify it to their CEO or CFO. What advice would you give them to make that business case?
Yeah, well, here I go being the broken record again, but the key is tying your vision, your roadmap to business results. So a great example was the reduction of returns. That has an enormous cost in the retail world. If you can imagine, there's not only a very specific, dollar figure in cost when people return things versus them keeping it, but think of the time loss within that space. And I think one of the key parts to that too is there's a really crucial part to planning this, because it's a reassignment of resources, right? Most contact centers, what we're looking at AI technology-wise is improving the customer experience. And improving the customer experience is just as much about having them talk to the right agents with the right information and kind of escalating the sophistication of those engagements and giving people really quick answers to the simple things that they don't necessarily want to engage with. And, people talk about different demographics and how they communicate and, where that's taking the contact center. And, being a father of four, I've seen a lot of demographics. And, what's been fascinating to me is, there's a discussion of younger generations always looking to technology, but trust me, when it comes to a certain level of problem, they want to self-serve and then they want to escalate and immediately talk to an expert. So, from that perspective, in today's world, customer service is still absolutely the biggest differentiator in almost every industry I know. So, sell with the business ideas and the results.
Okay, good. I appreciate that, Marty. That's great advice. And also want to mention too, Marty, I know that LANtelligence, your company, also has an implementation white paper, roadmap that can actually help all the listeners there be able to help roll out technology, implementations as well. And that'll be available along with a link to this recording. So all of you that have registered for this and are watching this will actually get a copy of that as well sent out. So Marty, thanks to you and your team for doing that. And I actually just had one last question come in. So I'll actually limit you both to very quick answers for this one though. But the question both Kay and Marty for you is, and Kay, I'll have you go first on this one, is, and this is from Raul in Ottawa, when rolling out these types of technologies, what kind of agent pushback have you experienced, and what kind of change management activities will help kind of smooth that over? So Kay, I'll turn over to you first for that question.
Oh, that's such a great question. I think whenever you're implementing something new in the contact center, it's just critically important to make sure that you let the agents know what it is, what the intent of it is, what the business reasons behind it, what impact will it have on them? Not just how to use it, but what will be the impact? Because especially as we talk about AI and AI-infused contact center, and a question in their mind probably is, even if they're not asking it out loud, is, are they trying to take my job away? Will my job disappear? And so I think it's just critically important to involve them, make sure they know, as Marty was just saying, you're not going, especially with the hard problems, we both talked about this, you're not going to be eliminating live agents. You're just simply eliminating the boring and redundant things that they need to answer again and again. Yes, the ball game is still on. Yes, the ball game is still on. So those are the type of things, but they will want to know, how is it impacting me? And you'll want to position this in a positive way. If the technologies, if you are seeking to reduce some of the agents who are having to handle those redundant inquiries, let them know what they'll be doing instead. That's just critically important.
Okay, great, Kate. Great advice as well. And Marty, what's your take on this in terms of looking at pushback and change management activities?
The most crucial thing out front in when you're looking at rolling something new out is having their input. Talk to them about, why we want to put this technology in place, what the business results we're looking for. What do you guys think of it as a group? Maybe have some folks that are going to lead that discussion. And when you get that buy-in from them on, hey, it's going to alleviate these issues for us, it's going to allow us to focus on these things we haven't been able to get to, then you'll get buy-in throughout the group, and it will really limit the pushback, as long as they can understand what it's going to do and how it's improving the environment and what their role is in it. That has the biggest impact.
Great.
Okay. Great, Marty. Great advice as well. I appreciate that. And again, the whole change management aspect, the motivational aspect for the agents on the front line are such key issues as well, going forward. So I really want to thank Kay Phelps from 8x8 and Marty Tracey from LANtelligence, both of you for sharing such great ideas with the audience. And I think people got a lot of benefit and a lot of great tips and ideas for that. And as well, I'm going to mention that there will be a copy of the webinar itself that will be sent out to you. So you'll have a copy of that. You can actually share that. It'll be a link to a YouTube video version of this webinar. So those of you can actually share that with your team members and with people, as well in your network to go let them know a bit more about how to really handle these kinds of rollouts of high-tech tools like AI and speech analytics and other agent enablement tools as well. So I want to thank both of you for being a part of this panel. As well, you can also go to the bookmark that's mentioned at the very bottom of the page, LANtelligence.com, Cloud Contact Center, and find out more information as well about many of the things that were mentioned by both Kay and Marty during this webinar. So thank you very much for this, and I hope you have a wonderful day as well. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Everyone.
Okay, thanks everyone.